the mind is in, if we want to, it's our wise part. Someone can call it our soul, our spirit, our inner wisdom, but it is the part of us that knows everything about us. And it's very important in Psyche, because in Psyche, before changing anything, we check with the superconscious mind if the goal we want to achieve is safe and appropriate for us. So imagine also, if we want to solve a health condition, or we want to work with a health condition, sometimes we just suppose and we think that we have to fix something because we consciously believe that fixing this thing is the best decision. But on the bigger scheme, this is not the best decision at all. With Psyche, it's not possible to go down this very dangerous road, because with Psyche, before doing anything, we check and we get permission from the superconscious mind. So it's the system of the person we work with that's telling us, please go on, or don't, please stop and do something.
Where they would, let's say, take a sample of your saliva and put it on this biofeedback thing and make a remedy out of it. So I am a classical homeopath.
Which would make sense, that you would be able to use your own biology to cure or to help you with whatever your ailment is. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is there something, I thought there was something about the frequency in homeopathy that like the frequency of the medicine or the tincture, whatever it is, the dilution of it, it's because it reaches a certain frequency. That's what actually is what is helping you, is the frequency of the dilution.
Yeah, so when the homeopathic remedy is diluted, so for 1x dilution, for example, just to make a clear example, is you take 1 drop of magic tincture and 9 drops of alcohol. So together you have 10. So that's X, the Roman letter. And then you succuss it 10 times, right? So each time you succuss it, you change. It's like the hydrogen bonds get contracted, or there's all these studies done with quantum mechanics and physics and biology, like how this really works, but that is what they've noticed, that succussion actually makes the remedy.
Fate. The people like Lipton have shown that through the science of epigenetics, that genes turn on and off, right?
Right.
And they do it minute by minute, which is really amazing to me, right?
And is that mostly because of our environment, our thoughts? Like what causes that?
Well, look, there's in what I've seen, there's 4 kind of different areas that play into this. One is certainly our thoughts and emotions. Absolutely no doubt about that. And Lipton demonstrated this beautifully in his work, how certain emotional states would turn on certain genes.
Right.
There's also pathologies, things like infections, right? Viruses and bacteria. There's physical trauma, that can cause problems. And there's physiological things like how our metabolic system works based on what we're putting into our bodies, right, on a daily basis. So all those things play a role. It's interesting, in my practice, I see a lot of autoimmune conditions.
Okay.
And what I've found is that in almost every single autoimmune patient that I've dealt with, when I start talking to them and I ask them about what happened around the time that this thing got triggered. Like I had a patient recently, woman in her 40s who had been dealing with severe rheumatoid arthritis for 15 years. And when I asked her, did anything happen around the time that this onset of this condition came on? And she says, yeah, I was a victim of a home invasion robbery.
And talk to me, so tell us a little bit too, what I wanted to talk about too, because you are, one of the things that you're actually really good at is creating community. And how important is community, friendship, relationships to our overall well-being, to our health?
Oh my goodness. For me, it's critical. It's oxygen. You know, I have a virtual community that honestly, if I didn't have that virtual community of my family, SRT family, I don't even know. Like, it's so important. It keeps me on point every day. And then, you know, also moving back to the mountains, I have some really good friends, and we've been getting together on Saturdays, having dinner. I'll cook a dinner and massages. We hire a masseuse, and is such a great way for like physical community. So for me, it's both. I've got to have some sort of physical community, and I'm doing the best I can with the COVID thing. But I have like-minded friends, and they seem to be okay with that too. But yeah, I community is everything. Being alone and being, you know, in nature with yourself is very important, but also for me, and I think it's just human to have a community.
Process.
That's right. And in that process, your body goes into a place of ketosis where it naturally wants to burn fat as fuel. And the body burns very efficiently when it's burning fat as fuel. But the trouble is, in 2020, 2021, we never run out of that sugar source. And sugar is so cheap that the food industry wants to pack it into everything that you have because it gives it some flavor, it gives it some sustenance.
It's dense.
It's that sweet spot where you hit that peak and then it drops and then you want some more.
Yeah.
Well,
so the food industry drives you to that bliss point.
You guys, like, I used to do a lot of events before, and there are some religions where they throw really big parties for children. And I remember being at an event one night and seeing, like, you know, there was like the ice cream station with all of the stuff on it. And then there was like the pop station, all sodas. And then there was another station that was like, fill your bag of like candies. And I remember just watching the kids as they progressed, right? And some of them would be like, they're wild, okay? Like wild. But some of them would be laying on the couches at the party or sitting in a chair, and they looked like they were like a drug addict who had just like gone, completely gone. And it really freaked me out, like that, you know, that it's like, it's a part of the lifestyle that we, you know, that a lot of people promote actually. And we're guilty if we don't give our kids candy.
And it was very interesting because, like, even in the pharmacy world, as we came up through the ranks and as we're learning all of this stuff, diabetes is taught as this progressive degenerative disease where you slowly lose all of the function of your pancreas to the point where you're going to need insulin. Type 2. So the people, those that are born with it, the type 1 that have already no function and they're already on insulin, that's a different story. But type 2, what we deal with more as people get more obese and they lose their function, they make it sound like there's no cure for this. And yet what we see is if you pull sugar out of someone's diet, their body goes back to burning fat as fuel, and their weight starts to come down, their blood sugars stabilize, they get clearer in their head,
heals,
the pancreas heals, and all.
So that's one that has an unconscious source. The third one I want to insert here happens where you end up with A equals B equals C. You have an event, you're a little kid, you have a dog, and you go out of the house one day to walk the dog, you have him on the leash, and all of a sudden the dog bolts. He pulls out of your hand, runs out into the street, and gets hit by a car. At the moment that happens, and you're looking at this in front of you, an ice cream truck goes by on the side, and it has the picture of a clown on it. And it continues on down the road. The way this little kid is going to handle this, and this happens all the time. You can't imagine how many things we have in us that are handled this way. He can't carry through with him the horror of that experience of watching the dog get hit by a car. So he buries that. And what he does is he takes that entire experience and puts it on the face of that clown. So from that day forward, that kid is afraid of clowns. Every time he sees a clown, he's going to feel terror and horror.
The outside.
Is there something that we can do that we're not overtaxing our liver in the way that are in our everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big things that come to mind are obviously excessive alcohol consumption is a big one. The debate rages on about coffee and caffeine because coffee can actually mobilize a lot of toxins from the liver. So I kind of have mixed feelings about it. But one thing that's actually very problematic these days is high fructose corn syrup. So, anytime you're eating lots of fructose, and I don't want to lump fruit into the same category, but I'm not a big fan of heavy fruit consumption at all. I think there's a lot of sugars, there's a lot of fructose in there. But basically one of the causes of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is in fact high consumption of high fructose corn syrup.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of people that are eating lots of processed foods and stuff like that have that corn syrup in it, that's a major contributor to fatty issues. Fried foods are another big one as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but fried foods, lots of.
When you say fried foods, is that in in any type of oil, or is
not
there
necessarily? No.
like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking more about your deep fried stuff, particularly deep fried vegetable oils or.
So for somebody who is experiencing, we'll say, illness or some sort of disease or whatever it is, how can they use the method to get to that next level of well-being, or where, so let's say they don't want to go the route of taking medication
and all that.
right? Like, how do you address the root cause of something and then move
I can talk a
from that?
little bit about the manifestations of health and wellness two ways.
Yeah, I would love that.
People can manifest health and wellness two ways. One way is a psychosomatic illness. So our thoughts can lead to physical illness, right? And we do know that. So whatever you put in your thoughts, it's going to tell your brain, and your brain is going to tell your body, because that's what we teach in Ultramind. Mind guides brain, brain guides body. And we teach people how to change that way of thinking, because when you change that way of thinking, you're going to change that way of living. And you're going to live to be happier and healthier. And you're going to stay that way, because